So today we're going to solve some more systems of equations. Now remember, what we're looking at, we have a basic problem in these equations that there's more than one variable. And remember, if there's more than one variable, we just can't solve it because there's more than one thing changing. But last time we worked on eliminating one of the variables when we got it equal to 0 so that it just kind of disappeared. Today we're going to take another approach to it. We've still got the same problem. We've got more than one variable, and it's still going to be the same solution where we need to get rid of one of them, but today we're going to kind of think about it as a code. So you remember back in, maybe this is just back in my childhood, but maybe it was back in your childhood also, where you had like the secret code that you had to try and crack. Like the number 1 was an A, and the number 3 was a J, and you'd put all the letters in, and then all of a sudden you'd have a sentence that would be the code that you were trying to crack. It's going to be kind of like that today, what we're doing. We're going to solve systems of equations by substitution. So let's look at this first problem. The first problem says we've got the system of equations y equals 6x and 2x plus 3y equals negative 20. Now, one of the things, make sure you understand that an equal sign does not mean answer. All right, an equal sign means the same as. So when I look at the top equation, I see y is the same thing as 6x. So remember when you were a kid and you substituted stuff in, the numbers or the letters for the numbers, we're going to do the exact same thing here. And since y is the same thing as 6x, I'm going to rewrite this bottom equation, 2x plus 3y. But instead of y, I can write in there 6x. Because y is the same thing as 6x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute that 6x in for the y in the second equation. Okay, now we've only got one letter in that equation, so we can actually solve this. Multiply 3 times 6x, that's going to be 18x. So we've got 2x plus 18x equals negative 20. So that's going to be 20x equals negative 20. Divide the 20 over, and we're going to get x equals negative 1. All right, so we're still not done. We've got our first variable. That's awesome, but now we need to take that and sub it back in. Either equation is going to work, but I like the top equation much, much more. So I'm going to use y equals 6x, but instead of the x, I know x is negative 1. All right, so that was the top equation, 6x, y equals 6x, and x is negative 1. So y equals negative 6. So our answer is just going to be negative 1, negative 6. And that is the one solution that works for both the top and the bottom equation. Let's do another one. Okay, so this time, again, there's 2 letters in each one of these equations, 2 variables, but the top equation tells me that y is the same thing as 5x minus 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this bottom equation, but instead of putting a y in it, I'm going to write 5x minus 8. So I've got 4 times x plus 3 times y. Now this is important. Make sure you get parentheses around this so we can see it's the distributive property. So all I've done here is I have substituted 5x minus 8 in for y. Okay? Pretty easy. So I've got 4x, and then distributive property, 3 times 5x is going to be 15x. 3 times negative 8 is going to be negative 24, equals 33. And let's simplify this. 19x minus 24 equals 33. Okay, well, two-step equation now. Let's just add the 24 over. We'll get 19x is equal to 57. And then divide the 19. And we'll just get x equals 3. Okay, so I've got the first one. That's great. Now I need to figure out what y equals. And again, I can use either equation, but I really like the top one a lot more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in for x my 3, because I know that x equals 3. So I've got y equals 5 times 3 minus 8. And 5 times 3 is 15 minus 8. That's just going to be y equals 7. So my answer, my ordered pair, is going to be 3, 7. That's my answer right there. All right, perfect. Well, that's not too bad. Let's look at one more type of problem. Now, this one is going to be really easy to solve, but it's so hard to see, right? Like, I've been doing this long enough, and shoot, I even remember when I was in high school that I had trouble kind of doing these problems. They look different, not quite sure. Here's what I see. Just looking at the top equation, x is the same thing as 2y plus 7. X is the same thing as 2y plus 7. So now when I turn my attention to this bottom equation down here, I know that x is the same thing as 2y plus 7. So I'm just going to write 2y plus 7 is equal to y plus 4. So I'm going to take just a second, look at that, and see how we put those together. Since x is the same thing as 2y plus 7, I just have to put that in for x in the bottom equation. And this is what we have. Okay, so now it's just real simple. Letters left, numbers right. Let's subtract the y and subtract the 7. 2y minus y is just 1y. And 4 minus 7 is negative 3, so y equals negative 3. Now I can choose, I need to go back up to the top so I can solve for x, and I can choose either the top or the bottom equation. I definitely like the bottom equation better. X equals, well, the y we know is negative 3 plus 4, so that's just x equals positive 1. So I've got my x, I've got my y, and I've got my solution. Solution is 1, negative 3. Okay, so that's a second way for us to solve these systems of equations. When we know that an x or a y is the same thing as something else, we can just solve it by substitution. So kind of going back to the beginning, where we saw y is the same thing as 6x, so we could just sub the 6x in for the y in the bottom equation. This time we saw that y is the same thing as 5x minus 8. So we could just put the 5x minus 8 in for the y in the second equation. By the way, one thing that people kind of get confused sometimes is they'll sub it in for the wrong letter. If the y is equal to 5x minus 8, that has to go into the y. So make sure we're careful with that substitution. And then this one, the tricky one, where they're both x equals or both y equals, just kind of set those equal to each other. Letters left, numbers right. Cross the line, change the sign. All right. I know you can do this. Good luck.